What's going on, guys? If you're looking for a comp to play in patch 11.5 of Teamfight Tactics, there were a lot of changes in the last patch. However, even despite all of that, the meta has not changed that much. I thought it would change a lot more, but apparently it's still the same thing. And this is the patch where the world qualifications for Teamfight Tactics is going on. So I checked out all the top players. They're still playing the same thing. So even with huge stakes on the line, there isn't any new secret strategy that's come out recently, but let's go over all the good comps because I'm sure you guys still want to climb this week, right? But yeah, big changes this patch. The biggest one being the 4-cost Chosen Odd change and then the reroll buffs. But again, none of these really mix things up that much. There is slightly more reroll Yasuo, some reroll Diana, but it's still not that great to go for where I'd be like, yo, you need to be going reroll Diana or Yasuo. So without further ado, let's get right into this. S tier, Slayers. No surprise there. Olaf and Tryndamere still broken. A tier's a little weird this week. It's they're either a really strong combination if you get it, or it's a kind of consistent composition. For example, Kayle, you can kind of go for it a lot of your games, whereas the rest of these comps, Fabled, Vanguard, Mystic, Sharpshooter, Brawler, Shyvana, and Keepers, you can only go for them sometimes, but when you do go for them, you're going to be doing really well because if you get a good start with them, you're going to be dominating the game. However, with Kayle, whether you get a great start or a good start with them, you're probably going to end up doing around the same just because the overall power level of this composition isn't quite as strong as the 3-star, 3-cost that each of these compositions have. For Fabled, Vanguard, Mystic, that is Neeko, Sharpshooter, Sivir, Brawler, Shyvana, and Keepers, Kennen. Onto the B tier, we have Enlightened Talon. Enlightened Talon is a step down from all the other 4-cost carries. The reason behind this is that Talon, he needs 3 items himself, right? But then you also need Morgana with a Morello, so you kind of need 4 items and 2 champions to 2-star, which is a little different. In Slayers, you could do either Olaf or Tryndamere. For Kayle, you just need Kayle. So it's a little bit different in that aspect, and that's why I rate Talon a little lower than everyone else. Cultist, it's actually very good to play right now if you're not in high challenger, in my opinion. I'll explain more about this when we get to Cultist. Same for the duelist build. And again, I'll explain more when I get to these 2 compositions later in this video. Dragonsoul seems to be the weakest version of Olaf, and when you run them, you don't even have to run Olaf actually, and you could run all the other units. It's still a decent build, but I knocked it down to the B tier because it's kind of seeming weaker than everything else. Warlords, you need amazing start for it. Reroll Mage, you need super amazing starts for it. Reroll Diana, it's a reroll build. Assassins, you need amazing starts for this. Mage Elderwood, Mage Elderwood kind of just fell through the wayside. The buffs to Lulu and Veigar weren't quite enough to push it up a little more, but maybe someone finds a new way to play it in the coming week. There's still a lot of time left on the patch. Zed's kind of the thing you go for if you're trying to just get a 5th place or something like that. Say you get a terrible start, and then you're screw it, I'm gonna go Zed because I found a Zed chosen. That's the only time you go Zed. Reroll Nasus, yeah, don't play this, guys. All right, so let's get into the comp. Slayers, it's still one of the best builds. You just need Last Whisper, either Olaf or Tryndamere is fine. Guardian Angel on both of them, super good. And then a lot of swords. You want as many swords as you can. You don't need them. You could run stuff like Hand of Justice instead. I had a comment saying dude, good luck getting 6 swords for this build. I don't care what they think because you could use so many different items. I'm just showing you the best ones because if I put Hand of Justice on one of these champions, someone's gonna be like, dude, Hand of Justice isn't best on this champion, but obviously not, but it's playable and you just need playable items on your carries. Enough of that rant, but that's why I have all these sword items here. It's showing best in slots, in my opinion, and you could run a lot of different stuff on here. For example, for Olaf, you could run a Last Whisper. Even though it's not listed there, you could still run it. You could run Hand of Justice, you could run Zeke's Herald, you could run all sorts of stuff. You can even run things like Dragon Claw. It all depends on your lobby, and I'm just giving you suggestions in these builds. Obviously, in your games, you're not going to be able to get perfect items. You probably won't get these exact 9 items because it's very difficult to even get 9 items in one game. So on to the next build, we have Fabled, Vanguard, Mystic. So this one, it's still a very decent comp. So for the next 4 comps, they all revolve around 3-star, 3-cost carries. And because of that, it's a super high roll build, and you need great starts to go for them. Great start is getting something like the Chosen of the 3 costs you want with some extra copies of those units. So if you have 5 Neekos, you could go for this build. But the main power of this build is just getting Jeweled Gauntlet on your Neeko, then 2 other items. They could be almost any damage item or defensive. So Guardian Angel is my favorite defensive item. Vanguard Spat is the best one because you get an additional Vanguard. Hextech Gunblade's kind of like a mix of the two. You could also mix in Handed Justice as well. And then after that, Chalice of Power is the main priority to try to buff up your Nico. And then you throw carry items onto Nautilus. Just any tank items will do. If you had a Sunfire Cape in the beginning of the game, throw that on Nautilus. Give him some Dragon Claw, some Bramble Vest. All those things are really good. You could even do stuff like Titan's Resolve. That's pretty funny to try on Nautilus if you haven't before. On to the next build, Sharpshooters. And just a quick note, for all these comps, I'm maybe doing like a quick rundown because not too much has changed. So all the regular viewers, you guys already know like what to do on all these builds. But if you are new, consider subscribing. I come out with the meta snapshot every week on Friday, so definitely look out for that and like a bunch of other videos throughout the day. I am kind of like a daily uploader recently. Haven't tried this before. It is a lot of work, but I'll try to keep it up as long as I can. So onto the Sharpshooter build. So Sivir with Last Whisper, RFC, and Quicksilver. It's like the best item combination you can have at 3-star Sivir. If you have these items, but you only have 2-star Sivir, it's not going to be that good. I'd rather have triple damage items or like something other than the RFC because she won't have enough damage to kill anything if she's only 2-star with these items. So with this particular build, you want to get her to 3-star. If you don't get her 3-star, run things like Infinity Edge, Runons, Hand of Justice, like just 3 damage items. Because again, if not, she just won't deal enough damage. But if you do get a 2-star Sivir, that doesn't mean you're like screwed that game. If you get a Samira, 2-star with Deathblade, GA, or Quicksilver, and then like another damage item, she'll carry. So you could either do Sivir 3-star or Samira 2-star. Both work really well. Depends on the game, depends on what you're like facing as well. So on to the next build, we have Brawler Shyvana. You guys might have seen my recent Brawler Shyvana video. Items are very flexible. You really just need a Runons on Shyvana, and then the other two, they could be literally anything. I like having at least one Hand of Justice because the healing on Shyvana is really, really nice. After that, any sort of attack damage item will work. Second Runons is really good too. And then you put all your ability power items on this guy right here in the center set. He's going to be smashing people in the front. And I like doing this formation, having set solo tank the front line and then have all your brawlers in the back. There might be a little bit of a walk-up time, but that's okay. Oh, and another good item on Shyvana, Rapid Fire Cannon. I like that one a lot too. On to the next build, Keeper Kennen. Again, I released a video on this before, so you guys can check that out in your free time. GA Morello Kennen, it's so good. And this build is so easy to play if you get a good start for it. And I've seen some people force this build every game and do pretty well with it. However, it's getting a little more popular now, so I don't recommend just like forcing this every game because you're going to be contested a lot more than you were last week. So if you guys didn't try this build yet by like forcing it every game, I'm sorry, but you guys missed out. That's why you gotta keep subscribed so you get the latest builds before everyone plays them. So onto the next build, we have the Executioner Kayle. Kale's in a weird spot. Like she's just kind of like the default 4-cost carry if you can't get Olaf. So if you're ever in one of those situations where you're just like not knowing what to play, you have some attack speed items, like just play Kayle. There are stronger carries, like I'd rather be playing Olaf, but if you get a Kayle 2-star really easily, you could carry the game from that, get the 2-star tanks such as Aatrox and Sejuani. You don't see them here. There are a lot of different builds for Kayle, but you guys can check out the full build on my website, BunnyMuffins.lol, and you see these links down here like full guide to Kayle, video guide, and Kayle to GM gameplay. We actually have like the rank 1 in North America who made that guide, so definitely go check that out after the video if you guys want to learn more about Kayle. So onto the B tier. B tier, again, these comps are just like slightly weaker than A tier, and like it's kind of all over the place because there are a lot of comps to fit here. I generally say play anything above B tier, but for B tier, you need to get like very good starts for them. And the reason behind that is because the power levels are not that big or they have a lot more requirements, such as this Enlightened Talon build. The requirements are a lot more than the Kayle builds, because Kayle can use like any sorts of items, whereas Talon, he needs specific items. He needs Guardian Angel, he needs like an Infinity Edge, and then like another sword item in most cases. If you do something like GA Double-Handed Justice on Talon, it's going to be okay, but it's not really going to hit that hard. So if you ever get like good but not really good items on Talon, it just feels really lackluster. And then after that, you still need a Morello Namicon on Morgana. And then like maybe in the super late game, you get 2-star Yone to really dominate the game there. So I don't really find myself playing this comp that much, even though it's like pretty decent if you get the right items for it. Onto the next build, 9 Cultists. Okay, so for 9 Cultists and like Duelist Reroll, these comps are really good outside of Challenger in my opinion. The reason behind that is because the power level of these comps, let's say, is like over here. Challenger boards, they're like over here. And like Masters and below, they're like over here. So there's not much decision making when you go reroll duelists or like cultists, 9 cultists, because the power levels, like, it's going to be the same almost no matter who plays them. So if you are below a certain level, you could play these comps to like very great effect. And again, the reason behind this is that 9 cultists, like, you're only as strong as however strong the Galio is, right? And that Galio, let's just say, is over here. So if the players in your lobby are not able to build boards that are above that point, you're going to be destroying them. So like, even though this isn't a comp played by like the best players in the world, I recommend playing this comps because we're not facing the best players in the world. The other players that we're dealing with, they're not going to be able to construct a powerful enough board to deal with the 9 Cultist Galio. So I actually do recommend this build, which is different than what I've said about Cultist before, because it's really easy to play. You just need to hit the 9 Cultists. There's not much else to say there. And in the mid game, 6 Cultists in stage 3 and stage 4 is like really, really powerful. And a lot of players can't deal with that, and that's why I do recommend playing this build. Same with the duelist build. Like duelist, reroll duelist. If you get like 5 Yasuos to start the game with, like, just go ahead, reroll Yasuo. Like, what's the worst that can happen? As long as you have like 1 or 2 items for him in the start as well, or sorry, 1 or 2 components, you'll be doing fine in most cases. So on to the next build, Dragonsoul. Dragonsoul, it's like a hipster Olaf build. Olaf's not included in this version I have here, but again, I have a guide down here if you want to check out how to play Dragonsoul with the Olaf. This composition fell down a lot in popularity and in strength. I feel like other comps are just kind of countering this right now. So notice how like everyone's in the front line. That means Kennen deals really well with against this composition because Kennen's literally going to hit everyone on your team. So you have a lot of short range, and like a lot of comps kind of deal with that really well. So that's why it's like a little lower. There are other factors as well that's going to take too long to get into, but it's still a decent build if you get like 2-star Aurelion Soul, and like, let's say you're playing the game, you have a Shyvana 2-star as your item holder. Maybe it's an item holder for Olaf. Maybe it's an item holder for Kayle. Who really knows? But then you just hit an Aurelion 2-star and you have a couple APs on your bench. That's when I would go for this build. So if you ever find yourself in that situation, that's what it's not a bad idea to try to go for this Dragonsoul comp. And there are a lot of different variations. Again, you could check that out in this full guide down here on my website if you are curious to learn more. Warlords are the next composition. So Tryndamere, yeah, he's going to be the carry, and then Katarina is another great carry. So if you get perfect item Katarina, she's going to be dealing like tons of damage, and she's going to be very annoying for other teams because like no one's prepared for a 3-star Katarina with Gunblade and QSS. And you add in a Titan's Resolve on top of that, like, it's pretty much unstoppable. The problem is it's very difficult to get to that point. So Warlords, it's kind of like a win big or like lose hard type of build. So if you're into that stuff, like, play Warlords. Like, I only go for this build in like some games if I get like great Warlords starts and I'm like win streaking the entire early game. But apart from that, I don't really try to go Warlords that often right now. Onto the next build, 7 Mages. So I've been seeing this build like a couple of times. It's not that good. But if you guys want to have some fun, you can try this build. You could start with the brand with like a Luden's early game to try to get you through like stage 2 and stage 3. And then you could do like reroll Vanguard with Annie. It's really fun. And Vanguard with like 3 items, Gunblade, blue buff, and like maybe a Quicksilver Sash or another damage item. You're going to be doing like pretty decently. It's pretty fun to watch. But like the overall power level of this build, it's like, it's so hard to hit that power level because you need 3-star Vanguard. And without it, the build's kind of useless because there's a huge difference between Vanguard 1-shotting people and Vanguard 2-shotting people, because it literally takes him twice the amount of time to do what he's supposed to do. And that's the difference between 2-star and 3-star Vanguard. And if you compare this to the other build, which require other 3-star, 3-cost carries, Kennen, for example, at 2-star, Kennen's still going to do a lot of work. 3-star is great, but it's not required to really dominate with that build. However, in the Vanguard build, you really need that 3-star Vanguard because, like, again, huge difference between 1-shotting and 2-shotting people. It literally takes twice the time. So that's why I don't really recommend going for this. And yeah, Annie 3-star, she's an okay tank, but like, Aatrox and Sedge are the real tanks, you know? It's like 7 Mages is great, but it's just kind of, yeah, I just don't recommend doing it. But if you want to have some fun, if you like playing Vanguard, I know a lot of people, they like one-trick Vanguard because he's been in a lot of sets. You can do this patch, I guess, but it's not going to be that great if you're trying to like really super hard climb, you know? But obviously, we're playing a video game. It's not all about climbing. Sometimes you just want to like have some fun, and that's a great build for that. Reroll Diana, like, it's playable, but yeah, just not that great, you know. You might get away with it if you're facing some like weaker players, but if you're really trying to climb really, really high, like you can't be playing this build more than like once every like 10 or 20 games, you know. Onto the next build, Assassins. This build takes, like, you guys know me already. I'm a huge fan of a Kayle carry. It's just really difficult to do. This runs into the same problems that the Vanguard comp faces, which is if you don't have 3-star Kayle or if you don't have 3-star Vanguard and they're only 2-star, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. However, if you do hit it, like, you're going to be dominating the lobby. So you can only go for this in specific games. Maybe this comp is like 1 out of every like 50 games I'd go for this. But if you do hit it, it is pretty good. So I'm going to leave it as an option here in the B tier. So on to the next build, Mage Elderwood. So Mage Elderwood, this has been like one of the most popular compositions of the set. However, right now, after all the nerfs to Elderwood, it's just not that great anymore. They did buff Vhagar and Lulu, but it's not enough to really bring them to the forefront because the main carry's Aurelion Soul. It was never about Vhagar or Lulu. And also Rakan got hit a lot in the early parts of the set because he was just like way too broken, right? Zai got hit a little as well. So like every unit in this comp pretty much got nerfed, or every unit that matters. So that's why it's just not as played anymore. You could still do it. If you get a spatula early, you could try to go for like the 9 Elderwood build. So if you don't have an early spatula, and like spatulas are pretty rare to get that early, I wouldn't really commit to this composition. So onto the next build, Zed. Again, Zed's kind of the build where it's like, you lost streak all of stage 2, and you're like, wow, my game is so screwed. Then you roll down on stage 3-2, you hit a chosen Zed, you have some attack speed items, you're like, all right, I'll just go for this, get like a 5th place. That's what this build's about, so like, I'm going to leave it up there because it's great for recovering bad starts, but it's not like a build where you're like, oh man, like I really want to go Zed reroll every game, for example. So with that in mind, like there are great uses for this composition, but I just don't recommend like playing it as like your main comp. If your main comp is like Olaf, and then this is like your backup comp if you get a bad start, like that makes complete sense. I would recommend doing that. So that's how I treat Zed right now. So onto the next one, we have Reroll Nasus. You don't play Nasus. So yeah, that's pretty much the comps. You guys can check out all the item stuff down here. I won't get into it today because I want to try to keep this video shorter because like the patch hasn't changed that much. But just to sum up, Slayer's the best by far. Olaf and Tryndamere are the best carries. Fabled, Vanguard Mystic, Sharpshooter, 8 Brawler, Shyvana, and Keepers. These are all 3-star, 3-cost carries, and those are all really good if you hit them, so only go for them if you get great items for them, and if you get a lot of the units. Kayle is the default 4-star carry if you don't get Olaf. Talon's kind of like the hipster of the group. Cultists and Duelists, I recommend them a lot if you are below like Challenger or GM, because people don't make boards strong enough to deal with them. And then the rest, like I'd kind of avoid, like I'd play them sparingly. So maybe these like 6 or 7 compositions, I'd play each of them maybe like 1 out of 20 games. So maybe out of 20 games, I'd play like 5 of these guys, and then the rest are like these guys up here, you know, something like that. So if you are a flex player and this meta is like very rewarding for flex players, I'd stick to like some sort of that ratio. Obviously, it depends on your games because like 20 games isn't that big of a sample size, so like your experience may vary a lot. But just something to keep in mind there. And I'm going to be releasing a Vanguard Mystic guide sometime this weekend, and I'll actually release my Japan placement matches video that I've been promising for a while. I'm gonna do all the stuff for it today, so it will be out very soon. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Again, if you're new, like and subscribe, as it helps me out a lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.